and forth. And they have to be able to answer pretty quickly to be able to get to the mastery level for that. That's one of the things we have. But in class, see, we're not really focusing on, do you know your facts that fast? We do some fact tests, but most of it is application. So they're going to be thinking and problem solving when they're working here. So they've really got to do a lot of that, getting those facts down. They've started learning those kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and to really get those down. So that's why I'm hoping that the practice at home, we're going to make it fun and something that they'll enjoy and won't take very long. It'll be a very short activity that they can do at home. And why are we doing the subtraction? Well, we have this standard for third grade to be able to subtract fluently within 1,000 numbers up to 1,000, okay, and add too. The addition's a little bit easier for them than the subtraction. So they need to learn about the place value and properties, all of those things to be able to do this. And we're learning about properties of addition now, order of operations, things like that. And then we took a little pre-test in here just to see where we all stood. And it shows that we do need practice. Now we have, there are a lot of students that are already meeting the first goal for the year, but nowhere near the end of the year goal. And so when you get your data, you'll see what I'm talking about. This is a building block for more complex math, and we do need it every day. Just think of yourself what you use subtraction for, or addition, either one. So this is the kind of thing that sounds very basic, and it is very basic, but if they've got this, they're going to be moving fast. They'll be able to think fast, move fast, learn so much better. So that's what we're going to be working on today. Fluency is just how quickly and accurately you do it. And like I said, I'm snapping my fingers. When you're asking them facts, are they having to think it out or use their fingers to think it out? And then that prevents them from using that brain power, as I tell them it's called, to solve the problem. Instead, they're just the problem that they're solving. If anyone wants to jog a spot for 15 seconds, go for it. But it prevents them, from, there we go. It prevents them from being able to stay focused on the problem at hand. Instead, now their problem becomes what's 7 minus 3. I have to figure that out instead of 7 people and 3 left, that kind of thing. So if they can do this quickly, and it takes a lot of practice for most students, it does, that will be beneficial. So by the end of third grade, all the students are going to show their mastery in subtraction facts of 0 to 20. So that would mean 20 minus 3, 20 minus 17, 20 minus 13, and they should be able to get it. We're approaching that in several different ways. This is what the subtraction assessment looks like, kind of like that. It's a whole page of problems. They get 3 minutes. If they know the facts fluidly, they should be able to get through that. If they don't, they're going to be struggling as they go through it. And I think it's 100 subtraction facts, right? 100 subtraction facts. And they're mixed. So one thing I do know is all of the students do know how to subtract, and they understand what it means, and that's important too, and they've got that down. But being able to do it quickly is going to be such a benefit. So this is our classroom data, and just kind of be looking at this chart. I'm going to pass out a little one so that you can see it. And the green line is the current benchmark. And you see that our class, a lot of students are there already. But this purple line is the end of the year. So they have a long way to go by the end of the year. And I want you to kind of talk about that in your group. What do you think about that when you think about by the end of the year? Could you do it? Let me pass these out. I'll start with this one for family right now. I'm not sure how many of these they gave me, but I can give you that one. And this is our classroom data. My students, first of all, I don't give my students numbers. So if they're first on my list, they wouldn't be number one. But even if I did, these are not in any kind of number order. These are random data charts. And your child has a number that you'll get in just a minute so that you can see where your child fits on here. Let's see, is there any one that I skipped over? There's an extra one. So this is what the data's looking at. Like, and to tell you the truth, our class really looks pretty good. We have some good math students, but you can see there's still a long way to go, no matter where your child is on here. Again, one of the things I want to say is, even if your child's not, like that green line's where we're trying to go for our kind of our midterm before we meet again. Well, a lot of students are already there. The purple line is what we want to be shooting for. If you're already at the green line, start thinking about that purple line and getting there by the end of the year. If you want to know which child is yours, you have a folder, and I don't want you to take it out. Don't show anybody else. But if you open up your folder here, like this, there's a sticky note in there, and just leave it in your folder because you'll be using it again when we come back. And it tells you which of those numbers is your student on that graph, which gives you the ability to kind of judge where are they on that graph. And that way you can kind of peek in there, see where's my child on this graph, and see where they fall and where they need to move to. And like I tell my students, it doesn't matter whether you're the lowest person on the graph or the highest person, you know, and they don't see these graphs, but as far as what their ability is in my class, it doesn't matter where you are. We're all climbing a ladder and we're all going up. So as long as you're still going up, wherever you're starting from, that's where you want to work from, and everybody has an individual goal. So that's what kind of like we're working on, is getting everybody moving up that ladder regardless of where they're starting from, because this is today. So what we're going to start with is a very simple game. There's a lot of other games. Let me tell you a couple of things first, and then we'll go into this game. You can ask them facts in the car while you're driving somewhere. Big time saver. You already have their captive audience. They're sitting right there. While you're cooking dinner. Things like that, you can ask, they can answer while you're doing other activities. While you're waiting for the game to begin when they're practicing, or during those practice times. Those are good times to grab that little bit of time that we really don't have. Now, if you would, go ahead and get your bag out, and I'm going to demonstrate real quick. Dad, if you, well, I have a set back here. What do they do with it? I'll just use this one. You're welcome to do that. And if you don't have a partner, grab somebody or partner up with three. I need a voluntold. Anybody? Any volunteers? Would you mind being my partner so we can demonstrate? If you want to get up and kind of gather around, I can show you what we're going to do. And then we're going to practice this game. So if you'll kind of gather around so you can see. We take out all of the face cards, and then and any directions or jokers, you'll be taking those out, and you'll be taking this home with you tonight. So we take them out and we lay it down in a little array of 9, a 3x3. And then I have my big dice. And some of your students have played this. Some of them have not played yet, but they will be. And they roll the dice. And so I have a 1. And what I have to do is find 2 numbers where the difference is 1. And using that vocabulary of the difference to get them used to that. You can use other words. So once I find it, I can say, oh, I picked 7 and 6 because 7 minus 6 has a difference of 1. Real simple. I get to keep the cards. Then the next person goes. Well, wait a minute. Before she goes, I've got to replace those. There has to be. So I'm going to put 2 more down. And you go. Okay. So you get to do the same thing I just did.
Oh. Find 2 cards with a difference of 4.
Mm-hmm. You're going to find them though.
Oh,
you found them for me.
You
You were helping me because I didn't know how to do it. Okay, so you get to say.
Oh, 10 minus 6 is a difference of 4.
Exactly. And just that simple. And using that vocabulary is going to reinforce to them. It's okay to use other vocabulary that goes along with that same thing. You know, it has a not a sum, a difference of 4, or the answer is 4, things like that. But we really want them to get that vocabulary in, okay? And you'll continue this until you're done. You can do it for 5 minutes. You can do it until all the cards are done. They can play as many times as they want, or as long, and even just a few hands of this is a good practice for them. You'll find out that they like it. Okay, they like it, they enjoy it, and it's just a real quick practice. It makes you think, because you've got numbers here, and guess what? Sometimes there's no answer by the cards that are out there. So sometimes there's not anything with a difference of 4 that happens to be out there, and then they have to pass. So you're not always going to get a pair. At the end, whoever has the most cards wins. They can play this with older and younger siblings, with their friends, anybody that they want to play with, or that has the time to play with them, so they can have someone come over and play this game with them. This is a game you'll be taking home. I'd like for everybody to practice one time, because you don't want to go home and not know how to play it. You don't want to get home and like, okay, let's play this game. I don't know how to do it. So if you would, partner up with somebody.
I'm a video you and her so that mom can see.
So
and
if
Dad
you
can
would
see,
kind of play the game, and then just try it out. You don't have to open all the sets, but if one of you open a set,
I'm a video
you
somewhere.
just kind of try it out, and then I can help you if you need help. You only need 1 dice to play. There's 2 in the bag though. Okay, we ready? My turn? Okay. 5. Let's see. Okay, I chose 7 and 2 because 7 minus 2 has a difference of 5.
Do we put more cards?
Yes, thank you for remembering. I always forget this part. Okay, you get to go down.
1. I chose 10 minus 9 because it has a difference of 1.
Awesome, and that's basically what they're going to be doing.
Okay.
Now, let's see if we've got everybody going.
It's your turn. You roll.
And then, can I see that sheet? I don't have this. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
So just make sure that you have all your items in the bag when you're finished, so that you'll have them when you get home. Now,
She said we taking these home, the
I
folder?
think the folder stays
Stay.
with.
This.
You'll fill this out, and we'll take the top. She gets the top one, and we take the bottom. So when they come back, you have something to compare it to.
Okay.
And you'll use this. So
Okay.
whatever number theirs is, so look at their number 1. So you put 4. And my child.
how's it going?
4.
You're gonna be able to play with Honey?
Depending on whatever their number is.
That'll be nice if you can. And it's really, if you think about it, because even as adults, sometimes we have to stop big too. And for us, it's more because we have so many things we're thinking about. I'm trying to think of something in multiplication or subtraction, and I had to use my fingers to organize my thinking. So it helps anybody to be able to speed it up a little bit. Okay, if you've got this, let me explain a couple of ways you can extend this game. You can add the face cards back in as an 11, 12, and 13. Or if your child's really advanced and they're like, I've got this, add those in as a 15, a 20, and a 30 or something, and then you have 2 dice that they can roll and make that difference even larger. So there's different types of things you can do to make it a little more challenging. I also have another game that I was going to pass out. The directions are on it. They use the cards, they don't use the dice, and they would need a separate sheet of paper. They can play against themselves and be player 1 and 2, or like they would do it one time as player 1, then they do it again as player 2 and see whether they won the first or second round, or they can play it with someone else. So it's just another game, and I just put several different grids on here that they can play different times. I'm going to put this over here and let you grab it as you walk out. Let's move on to their goals, their SMART goals. And if you've never done that, so I kind of already told you a way to make it more challenging. You can also make it easier by limiting the amount that they're subtracting. You could take, if you think that they only need to be subtracting, say 1, 2, or 3, instead of using the dice, you could take the 1s and 2s and 3s out, and instead of rolling a dice, they could flip one of those cards to be their difference, and then they could use the cards that are left to try to get to that. So there's different ways you can accommodate for where your child needs to work on it. And if you ever have any questions like, okay, I want this to be easier, or my child needs something more challenging, let me know, and I'll be glad to send something home. So we have kind of a I do, you do, we do. So right now, during the meeting, I'm explaining and demonstrating. You do, you're practicing the activity with a partner. And the we do is we're going to, well, we've kind of practiced together already, and giving some specific directions. I think everybody understood. If you didn't, raise your hand or get with me afterwards, because I know when we're counting it out really quick here, it's easy to miss something. And that's okay. So just let me know if you need any help with it. SMART goal. If you went to one of these meetings, you might have heard some of this already and feel like you kind of know, but a SMART goal, let's move again. Blank on the spot. I'd like to see some people blanking on the spot. Our SMART goals are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So I've given you the timeline. By the second meeting is the timeline for this first goal, and by the third meeting for that purple goal at the top. So, we want to know exactly what you want your child to accomplish. How will you know when they met it? And we're going to be creating a plan outlining how they're going to get there. Make sure the goal is not too far to be reached, but enough to be challenging. And when do you want them to meet the goal? So let's see. You have this sheet in your folder if you want to get that out. It's 2 copies of the same sheet. You'll be filling them both out. You'll be taking one, I'll be getting the other one. And there are scissors there for when you get to that point. So you'll be filling out the top part. All right. You'll be filling out this top part with your child's name and date, and their skill is subtraction, fact, fluency. Did she already put that on there for you? She did. She typed that in. Today my child can solve, and that's that number. In your folder is the student number, and you can look at the graph to see how many your child is solving already. So that's what this is, accurately in 3 minutes. By the next time you want them to be able to solve how many accurately in 3 minutes, don't write a number there yet, okay? And then to help them reach the goal, who's going to practice with your child? There may be several people that you're going to put here. And then number of days per week that you want them to practice, and about how long you think you could practice. And try to be realistic. I know it's like I want to practice 30 minutes every day, but no, let's be realistic. I might be lucky if I can practice 5 minutes 3 days a week. But understand that the more practice they're getting, the faster they're going to get it. And you'll see that result in the amount of time. But just kind of think about that. If you know it's already like, there's just no way we can fit this in, we're gonna be lucky to get it in twice a week. Then that's what you're going to get in, and you need to set your goal based on some of that. If your child's beginning score was 0 to 10, then a goal for them might be 20 to 30 by the next time we meet. If they're 11 to 35, it might be 40 to 60. You can kind of see how the scale goes. When you're thinking of the goal, again, think about realistically what kind of time are they going to be able to put into this, and realistically, you know your child. Are they fast? Are they going to be a quick learner? Are they going to get this that quickly? Because you do not want to set a goal that is so high that there's no way they can reach it. If they're only doing 7 right now, they're not going to be doing 100 when they come back. If they're doing 7 now, a goal of 20 might be very reasonable. And that might be even a challenge for them to get to 20 by the end of November when our next meeting is. So think about each individual, how they work, how fast they write too. If you're thinking, my child knows these facts faster than what it says on that sheet of paper I have in front of me, keep in mind they have to write it too. And for some students, that in itself is a problem, getting it written quickly.
When was this data collected?
This data was collected 2 weeks ago. I want to say 2 weeks ago. I could be wrong on the exact date, but since school started, and it's been at least 2 weeks. We are practicing, just to show you a couple other ways, reflex math. Let me see where I put that. 8.5. Oh, right, good. Another way that I'm practicing, just to kind of let you know what I'm doing at school, they have a little thing like this, and it'll be coming home when they're finished with one sheet. It is not for a grade, even though you see grades at the bottom. This is just for them. And they work on a different fact at each time. Like we started with 10, and I say a number orally, and they write the answer. So I say, like if they're on 10, I'll say -1. They write the answer. And I randomly say numbers. Once they master the 10s completely, they go to 11. Once they master the 11s, they go to 12. So then every child in the classroom is not necessarily on the same number. I have some students now that are still on 10. I have some on 12. I'm trying to see how, that's about as far as we are. Some on 10, some on 12. And it's very individual. They know they're competing against themselves, nobody else, just themselves. And we try to do it a few times a week. We just started that a couple of weeks ago too. And I move pretty fast. And I tell them it's okay if they can't write that fast. They do what they can. And they're just trying to beat their score each time. Once they get to 100 though, I move them to the next number. We'll do that same thing in multiplication starting probably October, November. I'll start them on multiplication with this next skill. But it's auditory. So they've got the computer program they can use. They've got this, which is an auditory where they're just hearing it and writing the answer. Then they have the basic practice. You see a piece of paper with the facts, and we do it that way too. So they have a lot of different ways that they can practice. And then of course this game, and we have other games that we do in here too, but this is kind of an easy, fast one. Doesn't take a lot of materials. It's pretty quick. You set it up, you can play a couple of rounds and see how they do. So you'll set their goal based on this.
Is the Rocket Math like 100 facts something that's available online?
We're not doing Rocket Math. That sheet said Rocket Math. That was just an example of the sheet. We're not doing Rocket Math in our class this year. We're doing the Reflex Math. It's a lot faster. It's all online.
But if their test is going to be on paper and my son is practicing like his
practice on paper here too. They do. They practice on paper and auditory. They do a little of both, but we're not doing a pencil paper Rocket Math in here. So they can practice. If you want to give them some at home, they can do that. There are online resources where you can print those out, and they do some facts practice in here too. That way.
The test is written.
Right, the test is
Because
written.
if my son is practicing on the computer
Right.
at home, then that's not going to happen.
Well,
mean,
it
it
might
does
not help them with the writing part, I
Yeah,
agree.
'cause that's
But it's
difficult.
more once you have it, and that's part of the problem when they're writing it, is they're having to think it out and write it. So it's taking longer. But if they're knowing it like this, then the writing of it doesn't take them quite as long. Unless, and once in a while, there's somebody who really has a issue with holding a pencil and writing it, then they would have a problem. And in that case, they just still do their best with it. And we don't worry, they're not going to get a bad grade or anything if they don't meet that goal. This is just a goal that if they can get there, you can feel secure that they're going to be doing much better in math by being able to do that. But they won't get any kind of grade or anything. So any improvement that they make is a benefit. And yes, they can do a paper pencil. They will do some paper pencil in here too, where they're writing, looking at the problem.
So you're saying the overarching goal is having it in their head
Exactly.
and knowing
Exactly.
it is the fluency. And
Exactly.
the writing, being able to do the 100.
Right is not not nearly as important. And you're going to see, like, they're bringing those little 3-word problems home every day. Well, I'm teaching them how to do the basic subtraction in hundreds, basic subtraction in tens and ones. I have a chance. Let me show you that really quick. So when I give them something like this, they can actually see, okay, basic subtraction. It's not 4 minus 6. That's 40 minus 60 is what I'm telling them. This is 2 minus 7, and they're not borrowing 1 from here. They're borrowing 10. They're borrowing one set of 10. I like call it like it is, okay? Because they need to understand that what they're doing. And I think when we say 3 minus 6, that 3 minus 6, wait a minute, now I'm in the ones place. It's not 3 minus 6, it's 30 minus 60. So things like this is helping them understand what they're actually doing, if that makes sense. And most of you were probably taught that this is, well, I go to this column, now it's 3 minus 6. Most of you were probably taught that way. And you start at each column 3 minus 6, and then, okay, I've got to regroup again. That's 7 now. No, that's 700. And that's 13 tens now. And what I'm trying to get them to see is I've taken 100, which is one set of 10, and I've moved it over. So now I have one set of 10, which is 10 plus 3 is 13, to try to get them to see that. So I'm breaking things up, but what I'm looking at is them being able to do this. And I show them this, okay? So I can break that apart. Well, I'm sorry. That's the problem they're really doing. Well, if I can see it that way, then I can see that I'm taking a set of 10, okay? So now I have, if I'm taking a set of 10, I have, right? And I have, but I still need more, right? So, I don't know. I think I might have done that wrong. Hold on.
Is that
Take it. Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I now have 799. Okay, there we go. 140. I'm sorry. And now they can do their subtraction. And so,
my children grown.
trying to kind of get them to visualize that. You're like, how are you getting
It's more difficult.
But it's just kind of a different way of thinking. You're saying, well, the old way works. Yes and no. The old way works, but they really don't understand what they're doing. And what happens is, as we get to higher level math, and I've been calling this a 1, that 3 a 1 and not a 10, then at some point they're going to be like, wait a minute. That they get confused. So I tell them, call it like it is. That's not 3. It's 3 tens, or it's 30. That's not 13. It's 13 tens or 130. It's kind of helping them see that. And we've done it with tens, hundreds, and ones charts too. So this is the kind of thing I'm trying to get them to be able to think, because in their mind, when they know they're subtracting here and they're only subtracting from the tens and ones, for example, they already know that they don't have enough in the tens place. So in their mind, they can say, I have to take one from here. And not just one, the whole set, 100. So they can do that actually mentally. And there are some students already doing that. So some of your students are already there. Some of them are where you're sitting right now. What is that? Some of them are there, and some of them are already doing. So they'll eventually be able to show you and understand what they're doing. Some of them may not get it this year. It may not be there this year. It might be next year or the year after before they're actually getting it. The other thing, really quickly, since I'm standing here to show you, is another thing that's helping them. Well, let's say 4,000 minus 652. Subtraction across zeros is a big deal, even if that was like that. When they start regrouping and they start going next door and there isn't anything, they start to get confused. And they'll regroup and they might get this, and then they do that, and then they end up doing that, and then they end up leaving it, and then they do that, and they get the wrong answer. So I tried to equate it with, if you're borrowing sugar from your neighbor, and that neighbor doesn't have any, you go all the way across till you finally find one that does. And so I'm borrowing one of their bags of sugar, and they had 400 tens. Okay, 4,000. So now they have, and they're drawing a line, so they're encasing it. Okay, so I'm showing them, and 399 plus 1 is that 4,000 that they have. So trying to show them that as a way, instead of, because I said, when you come back from your neighbors with your sugar, you stop and give some to this neighbor, and then stop and give some to this neighbor, and then go back out and try to borrow again, which is the way we learned it, right? We make this one a 10, then we gotta go back and borrow from that one, then we make that one a 9, make that one a 10, and all of that. That's how we learned it. So then they're regrouping, they're having to regroup that 3 times if they do it that way. But if they do it this way, and I just have me to draw a line under it, and there's nothing there, I'm just gonna keep going to the next one. Okay, there it is. And I'm gonna regroup there. I'm taking one group away from this 400 tens, because 4,000 is 400 tens. So they've underlined their 400, they're in the tens place, so they have 400 tens. Now I have 399 tens. And I'm bringing one set over there. So I was teaching them that this week, and that's something you'll be seeing soon, because that's what we're working on right now, that particular skill. So if they're trying to go all the way over there, just kind of help them out. The big thing is if they're only having to skip one, they don't need to go all the way across. So they're still learning, but this is where they're going. This is where they're going. You know? And I tell them with the Legos, we're trying to build a solid base. Because they already know if you build something with Legos and it doesn't have a solid base, it just falls apart. You know, you're rebuilding. So that's kind of where we're going. So you look at your SMART goal. I'm here to help, and then we're gonna oops, sorry. See, this doesn't do this on my other program. It doesn't reset back to the beginning. I'm having to hit play every time that comes on. So here's our chart, your SMART goal, and you've kind of looked a little bit at it. You should know their number. That chart is partially filled out if you want to do the rest, and I think I can go. Nope, I don't want to go to thank you yet. Sorry, back. I'm not used to this format, and it doesn't want to go back. Okay, well, if you'll look at that, if you have any questions about how to do the SMART goal, I'm glad to help you. But I did want to show you this. If you want to know more, and I know, you know, a lot of people are like, why are they doing math a new way? Well, the truth is we're really not doing it a new way. But we're asking the children to think about what it is and understand what it means. Because once they understand what it means, no matter how they do it, they've got it. They really understand what it means. So if they're telling you that, no, Mom, it's not a 13, it's 13 tens. That's true. Okay? It is true.
But how do you help them with their
But there's
homework
something,
if
if I can help you
we
with that, right,
was
you'll
taught
leave me
math
the
one
SMART
way
goals.
and they're teaching
I
it
tell you, if
different
you'll
in a
just set them
classroom?
upside down right here
It's difficult.
and pick up one of these other games as you read.
I
This
know.
has the directions.
So your
on how to do
kid,
it with
'cause-
the cards. They'll also be playing
I
this
literally
game in
went on my
class,
phone and
so
just
they'll be
double checked
learning
it.
that game too. So if you're